be careful like what you're getting yourself into here. If you end up going to law school without an LSAT, you might waste 3 years of time, 3 years of tuition money, God forbid, and then never end up practicing law because you can't make it past the bar exam in your state. Hello and welcome to episode 484 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. I'm Nathan Fox. With me is Ben Olson. We are the co-founders of LSATdemon.com and the LSAT Demon Daily podcast. You can be LSAT famous by sharing news or asking questions on our website, thinkinglsat.com. We've got a free class that we're teaching tonight. And by the time you hear this, we will have recorded it about a week ago. But it's a big one that we think everybody should make sure they check out. Ben, how do people go get the video of the Parents' Night class that we're going to teach tonight?
Yeah, so just go to lsat.link/parents. Again, that's lsat.link/parents. And that will take you to the class we just did. Yeah.
Yeah, what are we going to talk about tonight, Ben? I'm excited to do the Parents' Night that we did. Volume 1 was very successful. That was like a year ago or more than a year ago. We're doing it again to update it with new information about the way the LSAT works. But what's the point of doing a class that's targeted toward the parents of LSAT students?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, we have several things on the syllabus that we want to cover. GLAD, which we've talked a lot about on this podcast, and why the LSAT's important and how it can help you go to law school for way less than most people think. But I would say the main message that I want to get to parents is that the sticker price of law school is largely fictional. And it's normal and expected to get a generous scholarship. And by generous, we don't mean $5,000. We mean close to half, more than half, potentially full, potentially a stipend. That's normal if you know how this game is played. And if you understand that system and how to leverage it, you can be a great asset to your child, to your nephew, to your niece, or whoever you're helping on this journey. If you just understand that they would do a lot better in general to slow down in their LSAT preparation to get the best score that they can possibly get, and then slow down their application cycle so that they're applying early in the cycle, not late. If you do those two things, you can help them immensely and potentially go to law school for free, which is a life-changing, debt-removing
Oh, yeah.
move, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we can get at it at a slightly different angle. You know, if you're a listener of this podcast, you are probably more savvy about law school admissions than your parents are. And if you can drag your parents to this Parents' Night class, or if you can get your parents to watch this video in the Parents' Night class, the purpose of it is to teach your parents all the stuff that you have learned from listening to the Thinking LSAT podcast. Again, law school tuitions are fictional. You won't know the real price until after you apply. It's critical that you apply with your best GPA and your best LSAT, and you apply early and broadly so that you can then play that negotiating game and make sure that you're really getting the very best price you can. If you've got parents who are trying to force you in, and maybe they're lawyers, but they don't understand the law school admissions game in 2024. And if they're pushing you, saying, "Oh no, just don't worry about that. Just borrow the money. Just go to school right now. The application deadline's not until April. Just take the test now and apply in June, or sorry, apply in January, and start law school this upcoming fall." You know, just this class is meant to orient them in the way that the podcast has oriented you to the idea that you want to be a more savvy applicant than that, because they literally do charge the least savvy applicants the most. And your parents might be trying to force you into being a very unsavvy applicant.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to help you, but they don't realize what they're doing. They're actually hurting you. I had two pitches in mind. Hey, mom and dad, will you please come to this class so we can learn how to save $100,000 or more
That's a good
on law
one.
school? Another one might be, some parents might be like, "Oh, I don't care about the money." Who knows? That's rare, but you could say, "Hey, can you come to this class and learn so we can learn how I can graduate near the top of my class and have a
Oh,
much
yeah.
better chance
Mm.
at getting a high paying job."
That's interesting. I was talking just yesterday to one of our team members who is applying to law school this cycle,
Mhm.
and he applied with a 170 something to 30 something schools
Yeah.
because his wife is about to start medical residency and he doesn't know where he's going to end up going and he doesn't know where he's going to end up living. So he applied
Mhm.
geographically extremely broadly.
Mhm. Yeah.
And he has almost no designs on the top 14 at all because he right now works in the public defender's office. He wants to
Mhm.
graduate from law school and go to work in a public defender's office.
Mm. Mhm.
And for him to be a savvy applicant, he really needs to be looking pretty much at scholarships only.
Mhm.
And it's the the beautiful thing about that is that it's also going to position him to just totally kill it at that school. He's going to
Yeah.
be the only person at the entire school. Some of the schools he's applying to, I think frankly are kind of beneath his level
Mhm.
because his LSAT is like 8 points above the 75th percentile LSAT at that
Yeah.
school, and it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
"Yeah, okay, I don't know." You might be looking around the room wondering what you're
Getting
doing wasting
bored.
your time with your peers, but
Yeah.
but putting that aside, who gives a shit about your peers? Because all that matters is you get the A in the class,
Yep. You get the
right? I mean,
high grade. Yeah.
that's it's like scoreboard,
Mhm.
law is very much like, okay, did you win or did you lose? And so
Mhm.
you go to law school, you get A's, you're a winner. You go to law
Mhm.
school, you get C's, sorry, you're a loser. And
Yeah.
if he goes to these regional law schools, which are fine law schools, I mean, most public defenders, most small firm lawyers, small, medium firms, most lawyers come from schools like this. Right?
Yeah.
Most lawyers
Yeah.
don't go to Harvard and Stanford and Yale. Most lawyers do go to these
Yeah.
regional schools. So they're fine. They're just okay schools. They're not okay if you're paying Harvard prices for them. But this
Mhm.
demon team member is going to be going there for free, for sure. I mean, he's already got
Yeah.
multiple full ride offers in hand.
Wow. Yeah.
You
Even
know?
if you never, seriously consider those schools, knowing that a school multiple schools are willing to
Yeah.
give you a full ride scholarship or potentially even a stipend will at least
Oh,
give
he's
you the
got even
confidence.
stipends. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he knows his value now.
Yeah.
So
So you can
now
go
when
back
some
to, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, when some middling school now comes
Yeah.
to him with like, "Wow, yeah, we need your deposit right now so that you can sign up to pay $55,000 a year for our mediocre school." He's going to be looking at his other offers like, "You got to be shitting me. There's no
Yeah.
way." And I'm
Yeah.
sure he will get some very terrible offers, right? Some schools
Mhm.
like I'm sure they have these diversified approaches where it's like, "Well, we'll take a flyer on like let's just see if this guy might bite."
Yeah,
For like
maybe he
like for
only
a bad
applied to
offer.
us. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, exactly, yeah, and, anyway, it's funny if you apply broadly, you start to see how thirsty the law schools really are because you just see
Mm.
them falling all over themselves to offer you, that just roll out the red carpet, or they're gonna pay you to come to their school, and that's
Mhm.
the position that you can put yourself in if you do this whole thing our way.
Yeah.
Alright, it was again lsat.link/parents. You can get the
Mhm.
recording of the class that Ben and I are excited, obviously, to teach tonight. We have a couple questions from November test takers. These are people who took the official November LSAT, Ben.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the first one here is from Steve, and the subject is how to keep going.
Hi, Ben and Nathan. I've been an avid listener of the podcast and have used LSAT Demon for about 6 months now. I have a low GPA, 2.8, and had been testing in the low to mid 160s, roughly 163 to 166. I just received my score for the November LSAT and got a 157. I've been studying on and off for about 2 years now and withdrew my applications last cycle due to a low score, 153. I was confident this year and had told my family slash partner that this was the year. Part of me feels horrible pushing it out another year, but I know this is the best option. I'm feeling defeated after this last test and just want to know if you have any advice to help stay motivated in a situation like this.
Okay. Boy, appreciate you, Steve. Um, doesn't feel like you've really taken our advice fully on board, though, because one critical component is that you have to embrace the variance and just understand that you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, and only your good day is going to count. And you're allowed to take the test officially 5 times. I feel like somebody who really understood what we were trying to tell people, the advice is fairly simple. Practice until you're happy with your PTs. And it sounds like you were low to mid 160s, 163 to 166, assuming that that's the score that's going to get you where you want to go at the price you want to pay. You shouldn't have taken the November test unless you were happy with that range.
Mm-hmm.
Then, when you underperformed your range in November, you should have shaken that off and said, okay, good. I'm glad I'm signed up for January and
Yeah.
February and
Mm-hmm.
beyond.
Mm-hmm.
You also should already have decided to kick the can down the road another year. I mean, this is not somebody who should be applying this year. This is
No.
somebody who should be applying in 2025. September of 2025, Steve, is when we would have you applying to start law school in September of 2026.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not pushing it out another year. What you're doing is you're signing up for the January test, you're getting back on the horse, you're taking the test again. And if you're not willing to do that, then it indicates that there's something amiss. Like I start to question whether that 163 to 166 range was real. Like, did you actually time yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Did you take some pauses? Did you give yourself a couple minutes extra here or there? Sometimes people do that. We don't know why. Sometimes, maybe you've seen those tests before, so the scores are not like really indicative of what you're truly capable of. I don't know. What do you think? Are you
It
are you getting the same
it
kind of vibes from Steve's email?
Yeah, well, two things. One, I agree with you. I mean, it's possible that Steve, like so many people, is just giving way too much weight to the official test and treating that as gospel and not recognizing the 163 to 166 as just as legitimate tests.
Right.
Right. But I agree. Maybe there's something that Steve knows about those tests that's giving more weight to the 157 and the 153. But I want to talk about this sentence in particular. This he says, "I've been studying on and off for about 2 years."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, he withdrew his applications last cycle due to getting a 153. So what that meant was, I guess Steve actually applied with no LSAT, like LSAT pending.
mm, hmm,
Then got his score back 153 and said, "Yeah, never mind, disregard." And withdrew all his applications,
hmm.
which is clearly a bad application strategy.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
he
definitely
found
putting the
us
cart before
recently.
the horse. Yeah.
Yeah. He's been with LSAT Demon for 6 months. I mean, do you think he's been studying diligently for those 6 months, or do you think he's been on and off, on and off?
Th-
That's the part you're worried
That,
about, right?
that's what I'm worried about. Yeah, because we tell people all the time, "Hey, you're studying 4 hours a day, you're taking 2 tests a week, slow it down. Focus more on quality." But we also encourage people to study 6 or 7 days a week. So we want you to do less on each day, but we want you to put in that effort because if I'm worried that this on and off studying is in part because Steve isn't investing enough when he is studying. Maybe he's studying 3 days a week for an hour, and when you don't make I don't know, when you don't invest in it enough, you can just not really make like, maybe his practice test scores could be even higher if he really just, "Hey, I'm gonna get into this, and I'm gonna do well at it." Doesn't mean I'm gonna overdo it on every day, but it also means I'm gonna give it its
Yeah.
priority.
Yeah, I mean, to be frank, 163 to 166 LSAT and a 2.8 UGPA
Mm,
is not
mm,
exactly a crusher of an applicant anyway,
mhm. You really gotta compensate
right?
more with your LSAT. Yeah, yeah,
I mean, like if I was advising a friend or a family member and it was like, yeah, the best LSAT I got, I was able to achieve a 165 and I have a
mhm,
2.8 undergraduate GPA.
mm,
Okay. Go to lsatdemon.com/scholarships and put in those numbers and see what kinds of offers you're likely to get based on last year's scholarship and admissions data, publicly available
mhm,
data.
mhm.
We've consolidated all that for you at lsatdemon.com scholarship estimator. Um, but unless you see really attractive offers with those numbers, this just doesn't look like a very good candidate to law school for me.
Yeah, this is not maybe the
You know,
path. Yeah.
Honestly, if I was advising one of your kids or something, Ben, if you were
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Go talk
yeah,
to Uncle Nate,"
yeah. You
he'll
don't
give it
wanna
to you
listen to me?
straight.
Fine, go talk yeah.
Yeah, and I'd be like, "Well, I mean, let's look at the kind of schools you're gonna get into, and let's look at the kind of prices you're gonna pay, and let's look at the kind of job
Yeah,
outcomes that you're likely to get from those schools, especially
yeah,
if you pay that price." It's
yeah.
like, yeah, you're not gonna be in the top of your class. You are gonna pay a lot more tuition than everybody else, and your job outcomes are not that good when you don't finish in the
Mhm,
top of the class at this type of a school. So, what are we really trying to do here?
mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, maybe Steve's practice test goals need to be higher in the first place.
Yeah.
Even putting that issue aside, though,
Mm,
assuming 165 really does get Steve where he wants to go at the price he wants to pay,
sure.
then he really needed to be committed to the idea that he was just going to get back on the horse and keep taking the test officially until he had
Totally.
exhausted all of his attempts. That's a critical part
Yeah.
of our advice. Variance is your friend. There's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days. You got to plan ahead to shake off any bad days and just keep retaking the test. I mean, we have multiple people on staff at LSAT Demon who took the test 3, 4, 5 times until they achieved their best score and then ended up
Mhm.
going off to law school with a full ride.
Yeah.
I've sent people to Yale who took it 5 times. So, you know, like if you're not willing to take it 5 times, then this is just not the right field for you. And many people don't need to take it 5 times. You get lucky on your first attempt, great, you're done.
Yeah.
But if you don't get it done until the second attempt or the third attempt, there always needs to be a backup and a backup to the backup.
Mhm.
And so, when Steve is asking, like, well, what do I do now? How, how do I avoid feeling defeated? It's like you should have priced all that in ahead of time,
Mhm. Mhm. Instead of adding
right? You
it.
should have
Well,
gone it.
yeah, he basically made the November LSAT one and done. I puts a lot of pressure on the test, which is probably why
Right,
he got a 157.
right.
And it's what is that mentality? It's the good enough. It's the bare minimum. Like what's the least I can do to achieve my goal?
Yeah, and that's not what lawyers do. That's
Yeah.
not that's not how lawyers behave, right? Lawyers,
Mhm.
by the way, also don't tend to have gotten a 2.8 undergraduate GPA. Like,
Yeah.
are you a different student now than you were then, or are you the same person now that you were then?
Mhm.
Like, I had a very low 2 point something
Yeah.
undergraduate GPA. I was a terrible student in undergrad.
Yeah.
I then had a really high LSAT and thought, "Oh, I'll be fine in law school." No, I was the exact same shitty student in law school that I was in undergrad,
Mhm.
and I just shouldn't have been there. Like, law school
Yeah.
is for nerds.
Mhm.
Law school's for worker bees. Law school's for people
You
who
are a
wanna sit in the front
nerd,
row.
Nathan. You are a nerd, but a different type of nerd. Yeah.
I'm a different type of nerd. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like right, I'm a Baldur's Gate type of a nerd. The point is, like, law school is for people who wanna sit in the front row, talk to the professor every single day, be so
Mhm.
grateful to the professor for all of their wisdom, do every last bit of the readings, do the readings 3 weeks in advance and reread the readings before class so that you can be
Mhm.
fresh.
Yeah.
Go to every optional extra review session, kill it on the exams, get straight A's. I mean, that like That's
That's
what a
your goal.
lawyer is gonna do.
Yeah, and you sign up for all 5 LSATs, and then you just stop if you don't need them, not keep adding them if you decide you do need them.
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to sign up for
Yeah,
all of
sorry,
them,
that's
but
not
you
the right
absolutely
word.
can put
Yeah.
them. Well,
Mentally
you can put
sign
them
up.
on your calendar for free,
Yeah.
yeah, and you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
mentally sign up for them.
Yeah.
And so Steve didn't get that part of our message. So instead, Steve is like, "Well, I'm just gonna take it in November. My practice
Mhm.
test, I've been doing good, so I'm gonna take it in November. I'm gonna be done. I'm gonna apply right now. I'm gonna start
Apply.
law school
Yeah.
next year. Yay, friends and family, aren't you so proud of me?" And it's like,
Mhm.
dude, you're trying to get the reward before you've actually put in the work. Because
Yeah.
the work requires the willingness to have a bad day on your official test, shake it off,
Mhm.
keep studying, and retake and do that multiple times if necessary.
Yeah.
Anyway, next one is from Ash. Also took the November LSAT. Let's see what Ash has to say.
Okay. Hey, Demon Team. Thank you for your advice. I canceled my fall test and took the November LSAT, scoring a 171, up from 152. Wow, impressive.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. I have 2 attempts left and plan to take the February and April LSATs. My current range is 170 to 176 with an average of 173. I have a 4.08 GPA. Um, I'm just stopping here because Steve, this is the competition that you're up against. Someone who
Yep.
already has a 171 on record, and they plan to take the February and April LSATs to try to get even more to complement their 4.08 GPA. I mean, it's just
With no plans of applying this cycle, by the way.
no, yeah, they're going to
This is
apply
definitely someone
early
who's
next
going to
cycle.
apply on September 1 of next cycle. Like, this is what an avid Thinking LSAT listener does.
Yeah. Okay, Ash continues. In a recent episode, Eric advised going into game day not wanting to do anything special. I aspire to be above both medians of all schools, so 176 is my goal. Based on this mentality, should I wait to score above 176 on a practice test before testing again? Upon reflection, I did well in November, but my proctor exited in the middle of my test and I had to guess on the last 5 reading comp questions. My weakness. I didn't have time to with my work schedule to retake. I still need to slow down to speed up, avoid highlighting, and not look at the clock bar. Additionally, I'm worried about future proctoring errors and running out of content before April after 300 plus hours and 17 practice tests.
Well, there's like 80 practice tests. So, I don't see how you're in any imminent danger of running out of
Well,
practice tests.
yeah, some of those might have been burned up with drilling, right? Stuff like that. But and
Sure. Okay. The next thing I was going to say though is who cares anyway? It's a good problem to have.
sure.
By the time you literally run out of tests, you're ready to take the official test.
Well,
And so,
sorry, I was just gonna say too that, and I agree with you 100% because even when you do run out of tests, uh, are you getting 180s on every test that you take? It's actually
right.
not very common. A lot of people get 178, they get 176, they maybe even get it lower. It's like you've done this
Sure.
test before, you've done these questions before, and you're still getting them wrong. So those are prime questions to review and learn from.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, right. So you can still be productively studying, you can still be learning. Your diagnostics are not as good as they're not as
Yeah,
useful.
yeah, yeah.
That's fine, whatever. The point is not to be doing them for diagnostic purposes. The point is to be doing them so that you can practice tuning in to the logic of the language and the logic of the test
hmm
so that you could get better and better and better at solving these questions.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to address, the question that we have here in bold. Should I
Mm.
wait to score above 176 on a practice test before testing again? It just depends, I guess, Ash. And we'll see what Ben has to say about this. But from my
Mm.
perspective, if I take you at your word that you really want to be above both medians of all schools, including Yale,
Mhm.
well,
Mm.
what's Yale's median? And if it's 175 or 176, then I guess you should be practice testing above 175 or 176 before you sit for the official test. Because, as Eric astutely pointed out, you do not want to be doing anything different or anything special on your official test. You want to treat your official test like it's just another practice test. You want to look at all your awesome practice test scores and you want to go, "Yep, based on those PTs, I'm ready to sit for the official thing." And then when you sit for the official thing, you just calm down. Like, why does your proctor leaving in the middle of your test bother you?
Yeah, why is that an excuse? What does that have to do with anything?
What does it have to do with anything? If I saw a little message pop up, your proctor has left the room. Okay, fine. I'm just going to keep answering this question. I mean, that's like
Like,
5 seconds
great.
to
Yeah.
dismiss that message. Who cares?
Yeah.
And, Ash says, I'm worried about future proctoring errors. What? Why? I mean,
Yeah.
the vast majority of tests are administered without any problems.
Yeah.
The problems that do pop up, something like your proctor exiting during the middle of a test, I don't understand why that was really such a distraction. If you're good enough at the content of the test, then no amount of proctor distractions should really bother you. And if it is that big of a distraction, you can always get LSAC to give you a free retake.
Yeah, so to answer your question, I a couple points. One, Yale's 75th percentile is 175, it looks like.
Their 75th percentile is 175.
Oh, shit. Okay, no.
Their median is 175.
Yeah, their
That
median
sounds
is
right.
170. Let's see what their, okay. Oh, their 75th percentile is 177.
Yeah. Well, he said he wants to be above the median at all schools. So his 4.08, that's great. Is that above Yale's median GPA, by the way? Might not be.
I think so. I don't think actually any of them are, well, yeah, it's 4. Theirs is 4.
Theirs is
So,
4.0. Okay, so you've got
yeah.
the above median GPA. Awesome. To have the above median LSAT, yeah, you need a 176 or higher. So it's not that you should wait to score above 176 on a practice test. You should be scoring kind of regularly above 176, like half of them above and half of them below would then
Yeah.
make you a 50-50 to score 176 or higher, right?
Well, we really want a 177, right? If he wants to, well, he wants to be above the 75th percentile or just at or
Above the
above? Because I
50th. He
think,
said above the
oh, why
median, not the
can't,
75th.
what
He
the
says above the
fuck is wrong
median.
with me? Oh, okay, above the
I don't
median.
know.
Okay. For some reason, I got 75th in my head. Then I went and looked at the median. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know what's wrong. Okay. So, okay. Got it. 176. That makes sense. Is there any
Yeah.
value in being above it or just at it?
I don't think there's really, well, I mean, I'm sure they want to keep it going up, right? Like, I'm sure they would
Yeah.
prefer a 177 to a 176. You got
Yeah.
to imagine that they have other applicants with 4 point somethings and 176s,
Yeah.
and they're going to pick between them, right? I mean, that's what
Mm-hmm.
they have a single digit acceptance rate, I think, still at Yale. And so, uh, they turn down a lot of great applicants.
Yeah.
Uh, I have a feeling Ash is maybe being a little bit too precious about this. Like, you need to realize, Ash, that 176 is the 99.9th percentile.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a 1 in 1,000 score. You don't need a 1 in 1,000 score to go to Yale, but one more point would certainly help.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, I'm kind of a toss up here. Although I would say if your range is 170 to 176, you just scored a 171. You obviously can do better.
Mm-hmm.
So taking it again is only putting, like, you're using a bullet that is very likely to increase your highest score on record. So it's generally a good idea to take it. For Yale specifically, I don't know.
Yeah,
For
for
Yale
Yale
only, I
specifically,
don't know.
yeah, I feel like you're more likely to be in the middle there, and so then you're gonna be at or below Yale's median.
Yeah. But your grades are great. If the rest of your application is great, yeah, I don't know. It's just not that important, Ash. At your level, it's not that important. Contrast that, though, with Steve. It's
Yeah.
like, Steve, You need like 10 more points on your PTs, buddy. To
Yeah.
like the people that you're these are shark infested waters and you've got a
Mhm.
bad undergraduate GPA. You're going to be applying
Yeah.
as a splitter to get attractive offers. You're going to need a great LSAT and you're definitely kicking it down the road at least one more year if you're doing it our way.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because you were planning to apply this cycle, which no way in hell. You should be applying next cycle at the earliest.
Yeah.
Do you think Steve's gonna be ready to apply next cycle?
Possibly. We don't know. Yeah, he's gotta buckle down. Stay
He's
focused.
gotta buckle down. He's gotta
Yeah.
stay focused. He's gotta get his PT range as high as he can get it through diligent study 6 or 7 days a week.
Mhm.
Not 4 hours a day, 1 high quality hour 6 or 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Get your PT range as high as you can. And then when you sit for your next official test, I want you to also plan on sitting for the one after that and the one after that.
Mhm.
You've got 3 more bullets, I think, Steve. I want you to fire all 3 of them unless you kill it on the first one or the second one. Excuse me, kill it on the first one or the second one. You can go ahead and then cancel your plans to keep retaking it. But don't take it once if you're not willing to sit for the next one after that. You got to be confident enough in your PTs that no matter what you score on the official, you're going to just say, "Yep, okay, great. That's another data point. Keep going." Uh, we have a link here from Karen Sloan, the hardest working journalist on the law school beat.
Yeah.
The title of it, literally, if I see any headline about the LSAT or law school,
Yeah.
I just know already that Karen Sloan wrote it. She's like the only reporter who reports on this area, which is crazy to
Yeah.
me. um. Anyway, the headline here is "No LSAT to get into law school?" Question mark. ABA opens door to bypass standardized test. This is coming from Reuters. We have some stats from the article. I'll read them and maybe get your reactions.
Okay, sure.
Current ABA standards, this is right now, today, Ben,
Mhm.
allow schools to admit up to 10% of their classes without a standardized test score. What's that
It's
mean for
nice to know
applicants?
what that number. Yeah, it doesn't really mean anything. But I was curious, or at least I was surprised when I saw this stat because we've seen schools do this, right? A standardized test score is required by the ABA rules, but yet schools do occasionally admit people without an LSAT score. Usually, they're doing that in a predatory way. So actually, the takeaway here is if a school is offering to admit you without an LSAT score, you need to stop and really assess what the hell is going on because it's probably a trap.
Yeah. And like, especially if your undergraduate institution is trying to talk to you about some special program that they have
Mhm.
where they can admit you, oh, you're a KU undergrad?
Mm.
You can just sign up now to start law school immediately after graduating. All you need is a 3.5 or whatever undergrad at KU, and then you don't even need to take the LSAT. Well, okay. They're going to charge you full price, first of all. They don't want you to take the LSAT because if you took the
Mhm.
LSAT and you're a good candidate, you're going to get scholarship offers from a dozen other schools that compete with them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the scholarship only thing can be a scam in many cases. That's just one example.
Scholarship only? Sorry, you mean GPA
Sorry,
only?
the GPA only, LSAT free application is going to turn out to be not free law school.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the other thing I would want to say is that if you can only admit up to 10% of your classes without a standardized test score, still the vast majority of applicants
Yeah,
are going
for
to need
sure.
an LSAT score. And
Yeah.
not even all schools are doing this. Like, this is just what the ABA standards allow.
Mhm.
But if you look
Mhm.
at the 509 reports, you can see how many people applied without an LSAT. And many schools, it's negligible.
Yeah. Or 0. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Next bullet says individual law schools may apply for permission to bypass the existing admission test requirement for up to 100% of their incoming classes for a period of 3 to 5 years. Uh, they claim that this would enable schools to experiment in a controlled manner and allow the ABA to gather crucial data on what happens to your law school when you do this. Do we know of any schools that are admitting a significant portion of their class without LSAT?
I don't remember if the article mentioned, but I mean, this rule just changed. So if that's happening, it would have to have just started happening because I think the schools are
And
now
we won't
just applying for permission. Yeah.
Okay, and we won't actually see, but I did want to rely on our audience a little bit here. Would you please visit thinkinglsat.com and tell us if you see a school in your area that is making big talk about LSAT free
Mm,
admissions? Because I
yeah.
would love to figure out what the deal is with those schools. Maybe there are some schools that are making sensible offers related to this no LSAT option, but if otherwise, I have a I just have a suspicion that it's a way to admit people who, on the one hand, maybe they're not the best applicant. On the other hand, and I think that's what the ABA is concerned about. On the other hand, you might be just trying to give them an easy way to sign up to pay your tuition.
Yeah,
So it
100%.
might be good for them, but bad for you in that case, which is what we're
Well,
worried about.
this is interesting because they're rolling this out to a select number of schools, right? The schools that apply for permission and are granted that permission. Um, the irony of that is that unless you grant it to every school, the schools that have this option are able to basically go after students who don't want to take the LSAT
Yeah, right.
or whatever. And then by not, you're the kind of applicant who's going to now want to only apply to a small handful or maybe even just one school, making it so much easier for these schools to offer you, you know, bad offers because they know you're not applying anywhere.
Yeah,
You can't. You
yeah,
don't have an
yeah.
LSAT.
Yeah. Um, okay, so schools may or may not do this. Schools that do obtain a variance are going to have to share data with the ABA and access Lex Institute to analyze the numbers and look at whether applications increase, whether the demographics of the applications or the demographics of enrollment change, and then eventually how those students fare on the bar exam. So the 100% waiver thing is a 3 to 5 year period, and that would
Mhm.
give enough time for the first class, I guess, to go get to the point where they're going to actually take the bar, and then you could see how many of these people are actually going to become licensed attorneys.
Mhm.
Uh, article also pointed out that a 2019 study found that the average score for Black LSAT takers was 142 out of a possible 180, compared with 153 for white and Asian test takers. That's not really any kind of news to us. We have known that Blacks and Latinos do underperform on the LSAT. And it's not just an average underperformance, it's actually underperformance even after controlling for things like socioeconomic status. So it's an imperfect test for sure.
Yeah. And this is
But
one of the reasons
y-
that people are pushing for like a no test option, right? It's just
yeah.
how will it get implemented?
Well, how will those people end up doing on the bar exam as
Yeah.
well, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the bar exam is also an imperfect measure.
Mm. Mhm.
And pretty much every exam, standardized or otherwise, has similar biases in it. And, if you don't pass the bar exam, you're legally not allowed to practice law.
Mhm.
So the point of the testing requirement in the first place was meant as a consumer protection measure.
Mhm.
Like, we don't want to be accrediting your law school, giving our stamp of approval that, yes, this is an American Bar Association law school.
Mhm.
We're approving your school to prepare future lawyers. We don't want to do that if you're going to be admitting people who then can't pass the bar.
Yeah.
And so, because we're worried about that, we're going to make everybody take a test up front. so that if we so that you have some admission standards,
Mhm.
objective admission standards. Uh, I don't know, just be careful like what you're getting yourself into here.
Mhm.
If you end up going to law school without an LSAT, you might waste 3 years of time, 3 years of tuition money, God forbid, and then never end up practicing law because you can't make it past the bar exam in your state. We'll keep reporting on this. It's gonna these things move very slowly. So, episode
Yeah.
700 of the Thinking LSAT podcast, we'll have data about the people who have actually graduated from law school.
Hmm. This next one is from Anonymous. The subject is greater than 95% accuracy. Now what?
Celebrate. That is fantastic. You've realized that you
Yeah.
can actually answer the questions. That's cool. You're getting it. Hi, Ben and Nathan. I've been using the Demon to study and noticed a huge improvement in my accuracy. In drilling, I very rarely get questions wrong, and I'm focused on mostly level 5 difficulty questions. In timed sections, I also almost always attain over 95% accuracy, but I only get through about 18 questions. My goal score will require me to complete more questions than this, but I'm not sure how to improve past this point. Thank you in advance for any advice you can offer, Anonymous.
I mean, you're still getting questions wrong. Dig into those questions. You're, uh, you're getting questions right, but sometimes when you get a question right, you can entertain a bad answer much longer than a more experienced test taker. There might be 3 words in, a reason to abandon that answer, but you didn't. You read the entire wrong answer and then you contemplated why it was wrong. Gaining more confidence and understanding of the test will make it easier to eliminate those answers faster. So you just have to double down on your understanding of the test. Keep shooting for 100% accuracy and don't accept anything less. By that, I mean in review, make sure you try to understand exactly everything you could have about the questions that you got wrong and even some that you got right.
Yeah. The great news for someone like this is that
Hmm.
at this point, what I don't want you to do is to worry so much about your target score. Oh, I have to do 24 questions per section to get my target score. By the way, you don't, because that would be a target score of like 179, which that would be a dumb target score to have. Um, y- you, you know, what I don't want you to do is to think, okay, how do I get to 22 questions from here?
Hmm. Hmm.
Instead, I want you to think about two things. How do I get from 95% accuracy to 100% accuracy, as Ben said? Because
Hmm.
95% of 18 is 17.
Hmm.
So you're missing about one on the ones that you attempt.
Which means you don't understand about two.
Right. So there's one you're going to actually miss, and there's another one that you're kind of getting right on, or sorry, you're kind of getting lucky on. It's a lucky
Yeah.
correct answer.
Hmm.
And ideally, we want to clean up both of those things because get the one right. Also, be more confident and a lot faster on the ones that you're already getting right.
Hmm.
So 95% is not 100%. And at your level, sure, let's see if we can get 100%. Then the other thing to think about is that if you do get more confident, you're better at dismissing wrong answers. I'm not going to be surprised when you start getting through 19 questions instead. And so the marginal improvement, so those are two areas of marginal improvement, right? Better at accuracy so that you get 18 out of 18 instead of 17 out of 18. Better at confidently dismissing wrong answers that you know are wrong so that you can accidentally get to that 19th question and get that one right too.
Hmm.
The thing that's so awesome about somebody who's able to get 95 to 100% accuracy is that when they do one more question, they usually get one more point.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
When people are at 62% accuracy, they do one more question, they miss it very frequently
Well, their odds
because
of getting it
it's
right go
already
down.
Right, because it's one of the harder questions, right? At that
Yeah.
point in the section, you are doing the harder ones. At 95 to 100% accuracy, it doesn't matter because you've
Mhm.
realized that they're all solvable. But at
Mhm.
62% accuracy, you've got like a 30% understanding of the test. And now you're doing number 19. You got like, I mean, you're randomly guessing at that point. So, did you see that? Like that
Yeah.
double-edged thing, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, for sure.
this is why slow down to speed up, it just makes so much sense. You get better at the actual content of the test. You realize that the questions are solvable. You get faster at solving them without even trying because the wrong answers just look like trash.
Mhm.
Then, when you do have time to do one more question, you solve that question as well.
Yeah.
So, Anonymous could go from right now, doing 18 questions, getting one of them wrong, guessing on the remaining seven, let's say.
Mhm.
Get 1.4 of those from random chance to instead 19 out of 19, 19 points plus 1.2 points from the six guesses. So you're going to do one more question but you're going to get two more points basically.
Yeah.
And that's where the incremental improvement comes for people who have high accuracy. And this applies for somebody who's getting just, if you can get 10 out of the first 10, or sorry, if you can get 9 out of the first 10, I'm like, okay, cool. Let's make it 10 out of 10. And if you're really confident about it, I'm not going to be surprised when you also get to number 11 without even trying and get that one right too.
Hey, Nate, did
Anything
you
more for Anonymous?
yeah, did you ever watch The Bear?
Oh, yeah.
So, I think that's the show is about a guy who runs a restaurant, I think in Chicago or Boston? I can't
Chicago.
remember
Yeah.
now. Chicago, yeah.
hmm
So, anyways, I was as you were talking about this, I was thinking about one thing you said a long time ago. You said or you've said it a lot, really. Get paid for the work that you do.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I was just imagining, like, running that restaurant, which sells, sandwiches, and at the end of the day being like, "Hey, I see we made 100 sandwiches. Why is it that we've only been paid for 60 of them?" "Oh, well, boss, I mean,
Yeah.
it was just so hectic and so busy. I just couldn't collect the money from a lot of these folks. I just gave them the sandwich and they ran out the door." And it's like, okay, slow down, collect the money, then give them their sandwich. We might not make as many sandwiches or sell as many sandwiches, but boy, we'd love to get paid for every sandwich that goes out the door. If you don't slow down on these questions, you're foolishly letting them slip through your fingers and
yeah.
run out the door, and you're not getting paid for them.
Yeah, missing a question is the world's worst waste of time as well. You spent
Mm.
some time on it, like you're in the shit, you're
Mhm.
working on this plate. It's about to go out to the diner
Mhm.
and the bear looks at it and goes, "Why the fuck is this the wrong like, there's something it's beautiful by the way,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
spectacular and so much work went into it and fine ingredients and all this prep time and it's so much time went into it, but it's not perfect."
Mhm.
Bear takes the entire plate and
And
fucking
dumps it.
throws it
Yeah.
against a wall, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, well, okay, great. So now think about what you did, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, you didn't get paid for that dish. You're now more in the shit than you were before.
Mhm.
That didn't go out and satisfy your customer.
Yeah.
And instead, you're now redoing, like you're trying to do another diner and you haven't gotten paid for the previous one. Yeah, there is something there where it's like, well, Ben, do you want your lawyer to be perfect or do you want your lawyer to be almost perfect? Like
You want
the
them to be
person who's
perfect,
doing
yeah.
your will or
Yeah, yeah.
your merger agreement or your whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just not the zone for people who are going to do okay. Like, "Yeah, I'll do enough."
Yeah,
That's not what we want. We don't want enough. We want perfect.
we forgot the severability clause, but, yeah, you know.
Other than that,
It's pretty good, I
oh,
think.
we forgot to specify that this thing was gonna be enforced in our jurisdiction? Hmm. But I mean, other than that, though, it's perfect. It's just, we just got to make sure that it'll be
I mean,
enforced in this state. But
granted, Florida law isn't as friendly to your situation, but
yeah.
yeah,
All right.
no,
We could go on all day with this. I mean, the thing I really want to do is say, hey, anonymous, congratulations. Okay.
yeah,
95%
keep going.
accuracy is awesome. It's a huge win. You know that you understand the test. At that
Mm,
point, you really get it, right? At
mhm,
95%, you're like, oh yeah, I see what these guys are talking about. The
yeah,
LSAT is actually easy. I can actually solve these questions. But
mhm,
maybe anonymous, the reason why you're at 95 instead of 100 is
mhm,
because you're worried about that other insidious goal,
mhm,
which is, but I have to do more questions.
mm,
No, you don't. You don't. Just stay focused on accuracy and understanding. Let that speed come naturally through quick dismissal of wrong answer choices. That's the
mhm.
only place that it happens, is that you just know that wrong answers are wrong. And then you'll end up not having any problem with speed. Next one is from Hatcher.
Hey, Ben and Nathan, I'm in my first month of using the Demons Premium subscription, and my overall understanding of the test is light years ahead of where it used to be. While taking time sections, I slow down and focus on my understanding of the passage by answering around half of the questions, fixating on my accuracy. Although I have improved drastically, I find myself missing 1 to 2 questions, each of which and I end up narrowing down to two final answer choices.
Hmm.
Okay. I'm concerned that since there are 1 to 2 questions I'm missing due to a wrong 50-50 decision, there have to be at least two more that I'm getting right on a 50-50 choice. What are some good
Well, not
tactics?
at least 2, but 1 to 2. I mean, the same
Yeah.
amount, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
which however many you miss, if you were like, "Oh, yeah, I was between A and D on that one." Okay, well, let's assume that there was another one that you were between B and C on, and you got it right,
Mhm.
and you didn't even notice that you got it right. For every mistake, there's another one that you didn't really understand.
Mhm. Mhm.
Don't overinflate it. Sometimes people are like, "Oh, so for every one, if there was one that I was at a 50-50 on, there must be 7 that I got lucky on." No, just one more. Just
Yeah.
just another one.
Well, I am
Okay.
somewhat sympathetic to what Hatcher's saying here because I do believe people have a tendency to think that they understand more than they do. Even when you
That's true as a
understand a
general
question.
proposition.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Anyways, Hatcher says, what are some good tactics in locating these incorrect answer choices and choosing correct answer choices besides understanding the passage? Because I'm consciously working on that. And I will always have this issue. Oh, sorry. And will I always have this issue?
Uh, you will not always have this issue.
Mm-hmm.
It will go away over time. You need, though, to slow down even more and focus only on accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
You have to stop getting yourself to the 50-50 in the first place. Hatcher's like, how do I find the ones that I didn't really understand when I go back
Yeah.
and review?
Yeah. Yeah.
Eh,
Yeah.
I, I don't really want to answer that question. Instead, I want to answer the question of how do I avoid getting myself in this position in the first place? It is
Yeah.
very rare, Ben. How rare is it that you are like between two answers?
No, that's true. You want to find yourself getting to zero answer choices that you like more than you get to
Far more
50-50.
often.
Yeah.
I'd say far more often than you get to a 50-50.
You didn't have a good
I mean,
prediction and you weren't being critical enough with the other answer or any of the answers if you get to 50-50.
getting to a 50-50, I think it also indicates that you're reading the answers too quickly, because if you did the whole question and you're at a 50-50, unless E is one of those answers,
Mhm.
you didn't do the work that you should have done before you ever even read E.
Sure. Like if you liked B and then you liked D, at that moment right there, you need to choose between B and D. You shouldn't even get to E.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
there's no I've read all 5 answers and it's either B or D.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not what we do. Sorry, folks. That's just not the right. You got to clean up. I know it sounds like a small thing. Well, what's the big deal? Why don't I just tick off E and get rid of it? Well, the reason why is because if you have two answers, one of them is conclusively wrong.
Yeah.
Reading a new answer is not going to shed any light on why one of those two answers that you already like is conclusively wrong based on the record.
Yeah, oh,
So,
in fact, it just puts more into your mind, right? If you're
oh, of
holding
course,
2 up in your head and now you're
of
gonna add a
course,
3rd, jeez Louise.
of course. So, Hatcher, you got to slow down. If you liked A and then you like B,
Stop.
there can be only one. You have to eliminate one of those answers now.
Yeah.
Figure it out at that point. And now you might also then end up looking at C or D or E seriously. But unless you're willing to let go of one of A or B, there's no point like, oh, that's a contender. That's also a contender.
Mhm.
Boy, such a muddy thought process.
Mhm.
Those wrong answers are wrong. They're frequently wrong for multiple reasons. They don't even have to make sense. They will absolutely infect your understanding of the passage. They'll infect your understanding of the other wrong answer choices, or, you know, there's so many ways that those wrong answers can distract you.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's far more often. In fact, it happened in class to me the other night, right? With the question that Eric wrote
Mm.
that I got stumped on. And
Mm.
I refused to pick, but I wasn't
Mhm.
down between two. I was at
Mhm.
zero answers. I was like, this is
Mhm.
wrong because of that. This is wrong because of that. This one's wrong. That one's wrong. That one's wrong.
Mhm.
They're all five wrong.
Mhm.
I went back, I reread them and I reread them and I reread them, but
Mm.
I wasn't going to pick any of those answers. And that's a better position to be in than to be in the position of, well, both of these are good
And now I'm just
because
gonna
they're
flip a
just not.
coin. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Ready for
Hmm.
the next one?
Yeah. This one's from a dedicated demon disciple.
Hi, Demon Podcast team. Enjoying your new feature. What's the deal with X Law School? I'm going to cut to the chase and suggest that you guys investigate a school that is traditionally, or at least according to my anecdotal experience, considered among the best non T14 schools to go to if you want to practice in big law in the local area, which is Fordham Law School for NYC Big Law Placement. I would imagine many students would appreciate your thoughts on this because not everyone who wants to go the big law route can secure a 170 plus. On the other hand, we have those who might have such a high score, but for some reason might appreciate the full ride. So we're going to
Okay.
start from the scholarship estimator,
Yep.
lsatdemon.com/scholarships. We are going to do a quick search for Fordham, ranked 33rd in the country, 1,145 students. LSAT median is 167. GPA median is 3.76. No stipends, no full tuition scholarships,
Wow. Hmm.
but 42% of the class is getting something more than half discounted off of their nominal tuition and fees of $72,300, which is a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
But it's New York, so what do you expect? New York's expensive.
Mhm. Okay.
Thoughts so far?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that there's no stipends or full tuition scholarships. So no one can expect a full ride. That's surprising to me, I guess. Seems like most schools have some people getting full rides, but not necessarily. It almost seems like their maybe their pricing structure is a little more equal. Not entirely, of course, but maybe a little more equal than usual.
That looks Hey, it looks fairer to me. Now they
Mhm.
could be playing games with giving 99% scholarships and
Yeah.
calling it more than half just because they
Yep.
don't want to have the
The
bad look
full
of giving a lot of full rides. But let's see. There. Okay, so now I'm looking at the American Bar Association Section 509 information report,
Mhm.
and I'm scrolling down to the scholarships, grants and scholarships table, and I am seeing that their 75th percentile grant amount is $40,000 for full time, $30,000 for part time. And so, yeah, that's no, that's not a 95% scholarship. That's kind of barely over half, honestly.
Mm. Mhm.
So, this is a school that seems to be actually charging their students.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that I'm noticing, look at their LSAT uh, percentiles.
Mm.
You know how many schools have like a median and then their 75th is 1 point over that, and
Mhm.
then their 25th is like way
Way
below that
down. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because they're clearly giving a lot of full rides to get people in to raise their median.
Mhm.
Doesn't appear to be happening at Fordham. Their
Mm.
median is 167. Their 75th is 169. Their
Yeah.
25th is 165. So even the people at the bottom of the class in Fordham are
Yeah.
within striking distance of the people at the top of the class in Fordham.
Mhm.
This does seem like a much more value proposition, at least, for the people. I would rather, let's put it this way, I would rather be in the bottom of the class at Fordham than be in the bottom of the class at one of these schools that gives the big full ride
Yeah.
scholarships.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I don't want to be 10 points, LSAT points away from
Mhm.
the people at the top of the class. Isn't that interesting though? Like it seems like it's a more of a normal distribution
Yeah, it does. It seems like it's more of a
of
bell curve.
LSAT.
Just yeah.
And same thing with GPA. Median
Mhm.
3.76, 75th is 3.85, 25th is 3.60. So, it's like, all right, a tenth of a point here and a 15 points or yeah, 1.5, 1.6 points down below. It like you're not this is not a school of haves and have-nots to me. This
Yeah,
looks
it's
like a
more
school
centered.
where
Mhm.
and they seem to be like, yeah, I think that that is a much fairer pricing structure.
Mhm.
Now, if I was like some consultant and I went into Fordham and I said, "Hey, you want to increase your law school ranking?" I would
Yeah.
say, "Let's start giving some full rides."
Yep.
Maybe
And
they have
admitting
ethically, morally decided not to do that.
yeah, I wonder what their motivation is. I mean, but you're right. If you give more scholarships, what that also means is then you have to let other people in, more people in with lower numbers to pay full price to compensate for that outpouring of cash.
Right.
And
Yeah, no,
it
if you're gonna
separates
play
your
that
class.
game,
Yeah.
if you're gonna play that game where you give a bunch of scholarships so that you can raise your ranking, well, that money has to come from somewhere, and you have to be able to convince people to pay full tuition. And yeah, there's just gonna be people that are now way below those high flyer full ride scholarship recipients.
Now, to be fair and to speak from the perspective of someone applying to Fordham, although you would rather be at the bottom of the class at Fordham than at some other schools, would you still want to go to Fordham?
Well, you'd have to think about where else you're going to go and what kind of a scholarship you're going to get and what kind of big law placement they have at those schools.
Yeah.
But, cuz now I'm reading into this the law school transparency article
Yeah.
that Eric has provided here.
Mhm.
Private school reputation as a non T14 pathway to New York City big law. 83.3% of their graduates in 2023 work in New York. 45% of them are in firms with 500 or more employees. So that's big law. That's a significant chunk of the class going into New York City big law.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's going to be a bigger share than at lots of other schools. It is lower than Columbia, 76%. It's lower
Mm.
than NYU,
Mhm.
57.5%. But it is higher than Cardozo, 25%, St. John's, 30%. It's not like it's any kind of a guarantee. I don't know. What else do you want to say about that?
I just want to make sure that people, I mean, if you can get into another school with a stipend or a full tuition scholarship, even though Fordham is more egalitarian, maybe like in your interests, you're not paying at all potentially. And maybe you'll be even at it'll be even easier to stay at the top of that class. So, yeah.
Yeah, right. You're gonna have to compare. I mean, so I want to look at some of these other schools. Cardozo is ranked 61st in the country. Cardozo does offer not a huge chunk though, 3% full ride scholarships.
Mm, mhm.
If you were weighing a full ride to Cardozo with their what was that again? 25% big law placement
Mm,
versus uh Jesus, you're still going to be paying though $40,000 a year
yeah.
with Fordham's best offer, you're paying $40,000 a year.
Wait, 40 or
Okay, so
30? 30? 70 minus the 40, right?
30,
So
let's
then
say.
you're
Okay,
30,
$30,000 a
yeah.
year.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So like you're going to graduate with $100,000 in debt.
Mhm.
Well, that's just from tuition. Living expenses, let's say, are negligible. Or I mean, you're going to pay those in
Equal.
both schools.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, equal. So, okay, is it worth it, Ben, to pay $90,000 worth of Fordham tuition
Yeah.
if your goal is big law?
In New York.
Cardozo has a 25% placement. Let's
Mhm.
look at the splits actually at Cardozo. Um, I want to see how far the bottom of the class is down at Cardozo. Yeah, see, so Cardozo 164 median LSAT, 166 75th percentile LSAT, and then you start to see that long tail. 160 is their 25th percent. So it's not terrible, but it is flagging. You know, you're seeing now it's a 6-point discrepancy between 75th and 25th instead of a 4-point discrepancy between 75th and 25th. I guess,
Mhm.
yeah, it's not like you're going to be competing against a bunch of people who are really terrible at Cardozo. Do they
Mhm.
reduce or eliminate scholarships? No, they do not.
Mm. Yeah. How about Fordham?
That would be one that you would definitely have to consider, I think. Fordham also does not reduce or eliminate scholarships.
Okay.
So that's definitely something that's good to know. Anything on this jobs report that you want to talk about? There's a lot of data there.
There is a lot of data. What data are you most drawn to? You have the
I
employment
mean,
score, which is vague.
I want to know what big law placement plus federal clerkships is.
Yeah. Yep.
So, you know, at this school with 365 2023 graduates, you're looking at 178 of them in very big firms, 500 plus firms. You're looking at another 11 of them in federal clerkships who you assume those people could have gotten jobs in big law if they wanted to. So
Mhm.
that's 189, call it 190 out of 365, a little bit over half at Fordham.
Yeah. And for Cardozo, if you look at jobs by employer type, right? National law firm is 25% and federal clerkship is less than 1%. So you're looking at 25% national law firm.
So basically twice the chance
Mhm.
uh, of big law going to Fordham instead of Cardozo. Of course, a lot of that is selection bias because they do
Yeah.
have a significantly higher LSAT median. So there's just going to be tougher competition at a place like Fordham. So it's going to be harder to compete at Fordham, but they do take a lot more people straight into big law. Cardozo, the competition is going to be a little bit softer, but it's you're going to have to finish higher in your class to get the outcome you want.
Yeah. If you can get into Fordham, but then you choose to go to Cardozo and you
Right.
do well and you leverage your connections, boy, I sure like the idea of saving $90,000, which is actually more
I like the
because you have
idea of saving $90,000 as well. I you know, I we're not here to pick for you. We can't really
yeah.
tell you how to pick. But what we can do is we can just encourage you that if this is the path you really wanted to follow, right? If you want
Mhm.
New York City big law, you should apply to every school we have mentioned here. You should apply to
Yeah.
NYU because maybe they make you an
Mhm.
offer. You should apply to Columbia. You should apply to Fordham. You should apply to Cardozo. You should apply to St. John's. You should apply
Yeah.
to all of these schools. Is there anything that
Mhm.
and then see what kinds of offers you actually get? Is there anything you wanted to talk about with the part-time aspect of what Fordham does?
Sure. They do offer part-time to quite a few, right? Big program.
And they offer scholarships to their part-time
Mm.
program.
Yeah.
Um, 84% of their of sorry, 87% of the full-time class is getting some type of a grant, but 66% of the part-time program is getting some type of a grant, which is quite high. And that includes
Mhm.
a 75th percentile grant amount of $30,000,
Yeah.
which is 3/4 of $40,000, which is, I guess that's what it should be. If your degree takes 4/3 as
Yeah.
long,
Yeah, yeah.
an equal scholarship would be 3/4 as much. So that 75th, like the top scholarship offer that Fordham is willing to make looks like it's just as good for their part-time program as it is for their full-time program.
Which is interesting
And of
because the
course, that
numbers are
means
lower too, right? So, for the part-time program.
you mean LSAT and
Yeah.
GPA are lower?
LSAT
Yeah,
and GPA are lower. So
3
you
points lower on the median uh LSAT and yeah, almost 2/10 of a point lower GPA. I mean, you got to imagine that what they're doing there is they're they're picking people who have a very good chance of going straight into big law.
Mhm.
And that's what I would do. Right? Like
Yeah.
pick people who clearly are on a pathway.
Yeah.
Oh, you
They work
work
at
at a
some
firm
firm. Yeah.
that we know the law like is a regular pipeline, like Fordham people go to our part-time program and end up working full-time for this firm, and you're working as
Mhm.
a paralegal at that firm.
Yeah.
Fantastic. You can get on board with something like that. Interesting. I'm glad we did this. I feel better about Fordham than I would have previously, knowing nothing.
Yeah.
Fordham seems like
Likewise. Do you
one of the
wanna
schools that is not being super cheesy with their scholarship offers.
Yeah. Yeah. The price is a little closer to reality. Uh, do you wanna read this background that Eric provided?
Sure. Fordham is a private law school founded in 1905. It shares a 22-story building in downtown NYC with a residence hall for Fordham undergrads. Fordham has a reputation as a non T14 pathway to NYC Big Law. 83.3% of them work in New York. I already said this. 45% work in firms with
Mhm.
500 or more employees. In the past episode, In a past episode, we discussed a Georgetown law publication titled A Law Degree is No Sure Thing. That study ranks Fordham Law 15th in graduates' median annual earnings net of debt payments. Okay. I mean, that's probably that's a good indicator, right? Like
Mm.
they're
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
okay, how much are you paying on your student loans? How much money are you making? Fordham is ranked
Yeah.
15th of
Yeah.
all law schools in the country. That indicates that yeah, they're giving reasonable value for their money. Like the job
Mhm.
outcomes are actually now that's not to say that you're in a good position because you still could be, you could owe a lot of money and you're making a lot of money, but you owe a lot of money and you end up taking home not as much. But 15th out of all 200 uh, ABA law schools is better than not top 15 at all ABA law schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
US News ranks Fordham second in the country for part-time law programs. Uh, but yeah, still, it's mostly full-time students at Fordham. There's only 59
Mhm.
part-time students
Mhm.
out of 434 in their first year class.
Cool. Tips from a departing demon.
Okay, this is coming from Caleb, who went from a 143 to a 168 using the demon. Damn. Before switching to the Demon, my goal was a 160 LSAT so that I could get admitted to a top 100 law school and happily pay full price. Now, after receiving my first admission and scholarship offer to a solid law school, I just want to express how deeply thankful I am for your philosophy behind the LSAT and the resources Ben, Nathan, Eric, and the entire Demon team provide. To anyone that's beginning their LSAT journey or their time with the demon, learn to love it. Make it a game. Don't view studying as mindless reading and overly complex, arbitrary arguments. Beat the argument. Prove that you're right and the passage is wrong. Or communicate to someone else exactly what the reading comprehension passage said and what the author meant. I would also like to shout out Matt Dumont. While studying in the Discord, the Demon Discord, with a friend, Matt joined the channel and offered what was basically free tutoring for roughly an hour while my friend and I worked through a practice test review. This was at about 11 p.m. and completely unsolicited. Thank you, Matt. Your work and passion for helping others does not go unnoticed. No other prep company has employees that care that much about their students. Best regards, Caleb. Yeah, not only is Matt an OG teacher with us at LSAT Demon, Matt manages the teachers at LSAT Demon. And we hope that all the rest of our teachers will aspire to be as genuine, as genuinely interested in their students' success as Matt obviously is.
Yeah. Wow.
He's also a major nerd. He's on Discord at 11 a.m. just helping people out
11
for,
PM. Yeah.
you know, for fun. Because
Yeah.
like it is for the type of nerds who end up being successful on the LSAT and successful in law school. Yeah, you absolutely can make it into a game. And that's how it feels for me. That's how it feels for Ben. We have fun playing with these questions. And if you can take that on board as a student, like Caleb did, that's how you have this transformative improvement, right? Life changing improvement from a 143 to a 168. Not some cheesy, we guarantee you'll improve by 7 points.
Mhm.
Rather, if you do it our way, you'll learn that it's actually fun and easy. And you might
Mhm.
improve by 25 points once you start to see how simple, how straightforward it actually is if you simply just read what's on the page. Final words on Caleb?
No, thanks for the message. That's cool to hear. Yeah.
Word of the week?
Let's do it. This word is from you. I'm gonna try to pronounce it salubrious.
I would say salubrious.
Salubrious. Okay, cool.
Salubrious. What's that mean?
Salubrious.
Eric said, Eric texted me yesterday, or he emailed us yesterday, and he said, "Hey, word of the week." And I gave him two words, one of which I thought I knew the definition to, and the other one I don't think I know the definition to. They were just, I don't know why these words just popped into my head. Salubrious. I
Mhm.
think, does it mean like lucky or good?
This word is coming out of left field for me. I've never heard it.
No clue on salubrious.
No,
Here's an
salubrious? No.
example.
Okay.
Here's an example. After World War II, the American Army doctor Ansel Keys stumbled into the region, bought an old villa, and devoted his life to studying the salubrious effects on the heart of a diet of olive oil, fish, and fresh vegetables.
Sounds like healthful. Salubrious.
Yes.
Effects on the heart,
Hmm.
like beneficial? Yeah, I'm curious. Something
Yeah.
like that.
But, right. I mean, like, what do you think oil, fish, and olive oil, fish, and fresh vegetables are
Oh,
likely
that
to
sounds like
be?
shit.
Yeah, no, that's all stuff that we think is probably good.
Yep.
That, by the way, came from the New York Times, May of this year. We can look up the actual definition. Favorable to or promoting health or well-being.
Salubrious. That's Salubrious. Salubrious. Okay, cool. I'm gonna try to use that this week.
Unlike helpful and wholesome, salubrious tends to apply chiefly to the helpful effects of climate or air, as in the salubrious climate of the tropical island.
Hmm. So it
Huh.
doesn't typically apply in the way that the New York Times used it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not talking about climate or air there, right?
Yeah.
Instead, they're talking about the diet of olive oil, fish, and fresh vegetables. When Ansel Keys stumbled into that region and bought, I don't know what region he was in,
Yeah.
bought an old villa. Maybe he was on some island somewhere and he was also getting the tropical breezes and the salt air, and maybe there were salubrious effects of those things as well. That actually, maybe that that could have confounded his studies, right?
Yeah, mess things up.
All right. Thanks, Eric. Thanks everybody for listening. Ben, I'll see you tonight at Parents' Night. Don't remember, or don't don't forget to remember to come to Parents' Night tonight, or watch the recording with your folks. It's lsat.link/parents. You can be LSAT famous if you would like to ask questions or share news with us on our website, thinkinglsat.com, or on the socials at LSATdemon. If you have questions about LSAT Demon, you can email help@lsatdemon.com. Check out our other podcast, LSAT Demon Daily. That was episode 484 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.